Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name is Lily and I'm a Chinese transracial adoptee. Every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday I post videos about my experience as a transracial adoptee. So if that's something you're interested in, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let's get into the video. Hey everyone, welcome back. When I'm filming this right now, it's actually July 4th. So I figured that I would talk about a topic that to me is very straightforward, and maybe this will just end up being a shorter episode because I really just have one piece of advice. And so one of the biggest questions that I think a lot of adoptees have, and many have asked me about it just because I do speak so publicly about adoption and I am connecting with a lot of adoptees who are just now processing their stories and looking into them, is like, how do you talk to someone that's in the fog when you're out of the fog? And I think I'm just going to redefine what my definition of being in the fog is and being out of the fog. And to me, being out of the fog is just recognizing all of the complexities that come with your adoption story, and recognizing that in order to gain this new adoptive family and this new adoptive life, you had to lose a biological family first. And that family separation is going to cause trauma, and it's going to cause some pain and grief for you. And that's just something that you have to process and work through. And it's going to affect people differently. It's recognizing that adoption isn't just this rainbows and unicorns. Adoption is a blessing story. And it's recognizing that adoption stories are very unique. Being in the fog is basically just ignoring all of the trauma and ignoring anything other than I would have been dead if I was not adopted. I mean, the thing that I tell most people, everybody actually, is that I don't have a problem with people who are in the fog. Because again, it's their story and they're going to process it in the ways they want to process it. And I consider being in the fog as kind of a survival mechanism, and you're just doing what you have to do to make it through life. So I really don't have a problem with people who are in the fog. I think the issue comes when invalidation happens. And I mean, of course, it's not just in the fog people who will invalidate others, but most of the time when I see people in the fog interacting with people out of the fog, it's because they're popping on to say, actually, adoption is a blessing and you're just angry, you're just bitter. And they're saying the things that the rest of society likes to tell adoptees to invalidate them. You can be in the fog, just don't invalidate people. And if we're not invalidating each other, then we really shouldn't have an issue. I can respect how you process your story. I can respect how you view your story and recognize that you're just at a different stage. And you might be in that stage for a shorter amount of time, a longer amount of time, but it's not really my place to tell you that you need to move out of that stage. And so for the in the fog people, I think the same thing needs to happen. It's not like they have this pass to judge out of the fog adoptees' perspectives, and they can't tell out of the fog adoptees like, oh, stop saying that, like you're going to ruin adoption for everybody, and that type of thing. It's just this general like need for mutual respect and mutual compassion. And so talking to in the fog people can be kind of awkward sometimes, and I usually let them lead the conversation because I don't really like being responsible for kind of just pulling people out of the fog. If they find my videos and are starting to figure out the complexities of adoption that way, that's fine. But yeah, I never want to be the person that just kind of like pops into someone's life and is like, hey, your story is like this instead. Typically, I just let them lead the conversation. I gauge where they're at, and then I will adjust me, which is a responsibility that I'm putting on myself. But as an advocate and as this person that's becoming this, I don't know what to even call myself, but I've had so many younger adoptees come to me and say, like, you have opened my eyes to this, you have influenced me to start speaking up. So being this sort of like big sister figure, I don't want to be the one to also just completely tear somebody out of the fog. Instead, I'll just say things like, oh, well, have you seen this documentary? Have you read this article? Have you listened to these perspectives? Because I think it's really important to recognize how different adoption can be for people. It's really not as hard as I think a lot of people are afraid it's going to be. One of the other things is how you talk to people in the fog that you met when you were also in the fog. And that can be a little awkward. I think it's just constantly reminding people, like, you know what, I've just been processing my story in this different way, and I've been moving at this pace, and this is where I'm at. I would like you to be respectful of that, and I'll be respectful of your story. I think in the fog and out of the fog people can be friends. I think they can mix. I think we can all have these conversations. It's just really making an effort to be compassionate and respectful, because nobody should be existing in an echo chamber. I try to really have a broad group of perspectives that I listen to, and I'm constantly discovering new ones, especially on Instagram. Instagram is a great place to find other adoptees and also first family voices. It's just this constant work to create the safe spaces for people to embrace their unique stories, and to just constantly work towards being respectful and receptive to all of those different perspectives. Because I mean, I know that sometimes I see posts by in the fog people and I'm like, how could they say that? Like, they're going to be misleading everybody about adoption and whatever. But I also have to remind myself, they're talking about their story, and this is how they see their story. And they're not trying to silence me. I'm still going to be speaking up. And so I need to give them that safe space to share their story. Because I know that for most of my life, I was lying to the world about how I felt about my adoption and how I felt about my birth family, because I was afraid of making everybody mad. I mean, it feels so wrong, and it feels so, it's disingenuous. Like, I was literally lying about my feelings. But I also have to recognize that sharing on social media is super scary. And so people might revert back to that state of censoring and lying and changing what they're saying because they don't want to piss everybody off. Yeah, this is just like a general PSA, really, to just be respectful of other people. And so if you're talking to an in the fog person and you're out of the fog, be respectful. And if they start trying to invalidate you, say, you know, I respect your story, and I respect how you process your story, but that's not applicable to me. This is not how I view my story, and I would appreciate if you didn't project your story onto mine, because we are unique. We have different stories. And have some resources if they seem to be on the verge of coming out of the fog, because I think usually the people seeking out platforms like mine are already kind of like, there's something up. And so the people looking for support and looking for community, I think, are already kind of like, there's something else happening. And so have some resources and say, maybe you should check out this. And then they can form their opinion on their own, and you don't have to be the one like, pull you out of the fog. That's a huge responsibility, and I wouldn't really wish that on anybody. So we can all be respectful, we can be compassionate, and we can be receptive to different perspectives, but this is all assuming that nobody is trying to silence anybody else. So that was just my short PSA on how to be respectful and talk to in the fog people. If you're interested in more videos, you can always check out these two right here. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on Tuesday.